Hello and welcome back to 100 Days of Magic. I am glad you are here. Glad to have you tuning in live. But even if you're not watching me live, you're just watching me after the fact, that is cool too. We are here on day 19 of our 100-day journey when we are working through all of the different kinds of elements to make your life more magical. And until this point, we have been talking a lot about the theories of magic. What kind of mindset and cosmology is useful for your magical practice. We've also been talking about how we use the different elements of our minds, our bodies, our emotions, and our thoughts to hold open a space for our imagination. A little bit about what our imagination is, how it works, and finally about how we hold intentions, kind of thoughts beyond thoughts that give us a definite chief aim as we work through our lives. Well, today we're going to talk about the ethics of magic. Because in addition to all the other things and moving parts, you know, thinking beings, beings who want to create some good in the world, beings who are connected to spirit, are going to ask the ethical question at some point in time. Ethics? What is the right thing to do? Many a philosopher has spent volumes and volumes exploring even how to think about the concept of ethics. Is it purely a relativistic thing that's based on the culture and the situation that you're in? Is it always situational? Does it always depend? Or is there some magical way, magic with a little m, not a big M, to think about a universal kind of ethics that would apply in every place at all time? So, to summarize a couple thousand years of conversations on ethics, people have come up with the utilitarian versions where you use ethics to justify your behavior, the situational versions. But really, the heart of most of them comes down to its very basic ethical module. Kind of related to the golden rule. If you wouldn't like somebody doing it to you, you probably shouldn't do it to someone else. Sometimes I think all of the paper that has been written about virtue ethics and all other kinds of ethics could just be easier summarized as, if you don't want somebody to do that thing to you, you probably don't want to do that thing to somebody else. And to me, the ethics of magic isn't that much different than any other kinds of ethical conversations that we have. And the reason for that is it's a part of life. It is not something that's outside of our realm of possibility. It's not something that's set aside over there as a special case. It is who we are. We are meant to be creative beings, spiritual beings having a physical experience. I know this might differ from some magical traditions, specifically Wicca, that talks about anytime you do a magical act, the results will come back to you 3 times over, so that the punishment is even worse if you are using magic. And rather than thinking about that way, that sounds more like a superstition. You might want to consider it this way. When you are learning magic, you are learning how to use more of yourself, bring more of the power inherent in being a spiritual being down here to the physical plane. Because you are using more of yourself, there is more power behind your ability to manifest things in the world. Because there's more power in your ability to manifest things in the world, they manifest more quickly and with a larger footprint of results. So instead of having a BB gun, you have a bigger cannon that you are shooting off into the world. And because of that, that's where I think when we are considering our magic, that it makes sense to err on the side of being conservative. Because it is a different thing to pop someone with a BB gun than it is to, get the largest rifle you can find and shoot them with that. Repercussions are much, much more severe, much more enduring, all of those kinds of things. Other thing to consider, once you get deeper into your magical practice, you will realize that not all things require great big complicated rituals and invoking all of your spirit guides, because when you're truly acting in alignment with your intentions in all areas of your life, you're going to find things manifest more easily in general because you are very clear on all levels. So that all of the rituals and things are they're just not necessary. So you find yourself living the magic, becoming the magic. Back to that saying that we talked about in the beginning, that first you study the magic, and then you practice the magic, and then you realize you have become the magic. And when you become the magic, you are living in alignment with spirit, and the world kind of moves around you to help you fulfill that process. Yes, but what are all the other things you want to put in there? Okay. Well, what if I want to manifest something that's directly against what someone else wants to do? Well, that is somewhat inherent in the world that we live in, that not all things are available to all people at all times. I went to an international boarding school. I was one of 4 Americans, 6 Americans out of all the students there, 200 of them. And it became very clear when you're with students from 70 or 80 different countries that anyone who's living in the developed world has significant advantages that we take for granted because of the world that we grew up in. It may not be popular at this time in American culture to start the conversation of power differences between different sets of the population or different parts of the world. But anybody who's grown up in the United States or parts of Europe has such a differential in our ability to freely express what we want to do. It's difficult to think about what we do, just going to the grocery store or turning on the light switch, as taking away from somebody else. But in a way it is. Or maybe to hit more at the heart for people who are doing a magical practice, let's just consider those pretty crystals that you are picking up in a New Age bookstore. Those didn't just poof magically appear in the bookstore. Those are connected to a long chain of processes that go back to the country where they were dug up, in many cases by people who were paid for something that would end up on a shelf here for $1,000, the equivalent of a cup of rice for the day. And considering all the steps in between, and you have to ask yourself, are things like that ethical? And so ethics becomes a way of thinking about the world. Not something that you sit on the side. That is especially important when you are doing your magic, because you're trying to exist in manifesting your spiritual self. And so before you do things in life, as well as before you do things in magic, it is something to consider. But before you tie yourself up to the point that you can't move at all, which people have done at different points in time in history, remember that you are here and you are having a life, a spiritual life. Your point of view is valid. And if you weren't to explore things in this lifetime, why is your soul here to manifest in the first place? Which gets back to our, if you wouldn't want someone doing it to you, you probably shouldn't do it to someone else. As excellent, simple baseline benchmark that most ethical conversations are built on. Okay? So ask yourself that question when you are doing your spell work. If I'm going to cast a love spell on this person because, oh, I'm so devoted and they're not paying attention to me and I would like to spend the rest of my life with them and I hope they fall madly in love with me. So I'm going to cast a love spell on them. If your roles were reversed, would you really want someone doing that to you? And if you're really honest with yourself, the answer is probably no. Because that's imposing on your ability to walk through the world. Okay? So consider these kinds of things when you are beginning not just your journey into magic, but the journey into magic is the journey into self-actualization, into the terms of, using the terms of Carl Jung. It is about, self-actualization is about your conscious, talky mind, connecting to your soul, connecting to your spark of divinity. Bring more consciousness into as you're working through the world and learning how to work with that symbolic field that connects it all together to help things to physically manifest in the world. That's where magic comes from. Or if you want to talk about spiritual magic, perhaps help you to be able to forge those connections in your inner world. Okay? So, as you put together your homework for the day, I hope you spend some time thinking about for yourself, what are the ethics of magic to you? What does it mean for you? Because this is something you're going to be grappling with as you grow and develop in your practice, whether your practice be astrological or reading tarot cards or doing spells, because in my opinion, those are all one big continuum. You can't, people who say they're doing astrology but they're not doing magic are not paying attention to what astrology is. And they might not realize what astrology is. But for certain, anybody in the Indian tradition is well aware that the connections between doing magic and doing astrology and having a spiritual practice are all kind of mushed together. They don't make those kind of distinctions. It's only in the West where our concepts about astrology have gotten skewed in the last few hundred years. But to me, they're all one big thing. So whatever kind you are practicing, whatever tools you are using for this adventure in co-creating your world, ethics will always be part of it. And you ignore that fact at your peril, only in the sense that we always tend to create situations to help us see what we are not seeing. And if you are not seeing the agency of other people, if you are not seeing the humanity of other people, it's a good chance you're going to attract situations into your life to have you to learn what that means, either by someone not seeing your humanity or by the consequences of whatever you come up with. So consider that. In magic, our biggest challenges, just as in life, are the laws of unintended consequences. We intend to do the right thing in our ethical path. Most people do. They want to do the right thing. And you do what you think is best with the circumstances that you have in front of you. But when we do that, as we move through life, we always, if you are going to be an ethical human, you are taking responsibility for the choices that you make, even if what happens afterwards was not what you intended. In fact, the world is on this journey right now, collectively, in the sense of, if humanity is called to be stewards of the planet, all along the way, we didn't see a problem with using fossil fuels and developing plastics and all of these things. We just didn't understand that the chemicals that we were creating were causing harm to our planet because we didn't have the experience, we didn't have the tools to even think about it. But now that we are here, we have a choice to recognize that we are responsible for what we've created and do something about it, or cosmic forces will throw it into our faces and keep throwing it into our faces until we recognize what needs to be learned here, which is the ethics and responsibilities of our actions. Okay? Well, glad you're here. Hey, Boris, it's good to see you on this weekend edition of 100 Days of Magic. As we move into this week, we're going to be talking about more tangible ways of creating magic in your world, how you can see the magic in every moment, and begin to recognize the spirit in the things, the everyday things that we do in our worlds that are all around us. So, for those of you who've been tuning into all of these lessons, I'm sure you know me. I'm Donna Woodwell. I am the organizer of this Crossroads of Magic and Mastery. I am the owner of a School of Magic and Mastery, which provides all the tools you could possibly need to deepen your magical practice. I have over 75 hours of training in all kinds of forms of spell casting, whether it be using cord magic or sigil magic or what have you, like 10 lessons there. All the tools that you need if you feel called to be a priest or a priestess, walking the shamanic path, a whole set of tools for doing divination, whether it's reading tea leaves and reading palms, looking at your dreams, to a whole section on alchemy and all of the alchemical processes. It's a simple monthly fee of $47 a month right now. We'll be going up to $77 a month pretty soon because the collection keeps getting bigger. But I dare you to find a larger collection of quality magical training anywhere on the internet for $47 a month. You won't find it. And a great community to share it all with. Plus, you have someone who's been doing magic for 30 years to help you figure out what it all means. You know, I wish when I had been starting to learn, I was very lucky. I had 2 amazing teachers, and I could get my questions answered. So I'm doing the best that I can to provide a similar kind of experience to the one that I had in an internet world. Considering when I started, there was no internet. So I am here for you in all the ways that I can think about it. You can find out more information about the Coven, which is our little magical academy, month by month, at www.magicandmastery.com/coven. There's also a link in the featured posts of this group. Or if you don't feel like you're ready to just dive into all the material and you want to get your feet wet, I have a second group that is all about tuning into the magic of the new moons and full moons, the movement of the sun through the zodiac signs, and the seasonal celebrations. That is $27 a month. And you get to meet the community and begin to understand what it is to live with seasons and live with the tensions. Okay? So you have options that I'm here to support you with. And as always, I will be back tomorrow to continue our conversation about 100 Days of Magic, where we start learning about the magic in our everyday lives. So until the next time, I look forward to talking to you then. Take care, everyone.